Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. Today's video is going to be all about peppers. It's that time of year when I like to get started with my pepper seeds. I've just finished coming up with a whole list of peppers that I am planning to grow this season, and I just wanted to share with you guys what I'm planning to grow. Now this year I'm growing a mix of tried and true varieties plus some new varieties. I'm also continuing my quest for the perfect bell pepper replacement. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But I figured today would be the perfect opportunity to share all these pepper seeds with you and just share all the varieties that I'm planning on growing this year. Now, as I go through this video, I would love to hear any experiences that you have with these pepper varieties, especially, as I mentioned, probably about half of these are new varieties to me. So I would especially love to hear your experience with the varieties that are new to me because obviously I've never grown them before. So we are going to start with hot peppers. First, I am going to grow the early jalapeno pepper. Now on the seed packet here, this is just called jalapeno, but this is the early jalapeno variety. This is really basically your classic jalapeno pepper. This is, I want to say it's an heirloom. I know it's at least an open pollinated variety. So this is a great variety to save seeds from. It's just your classic jalapeno. In my area, I have found that this does not have a very high heat level. It's usually a really mild jalapeno. I know that can kind of vary depending on where you're growing it and the weather conditions that year, but in my experience, this has overall been fairly mild, which is what I like. I don't really like a high spice level, but my husband does, which is why I'm growing a couple other varieties of jalapenos as well. The next variety that I'm growing this year is the jalafuego. This is another type of jalapeno variety. It's a little bit larger. It's definitely quite a bit spicier. So my husband prefers the jalafuego. I like to grow both of those so that I have a nice variety or a nice mix of heat levels. And what I like to do towards the end of the season, whatever jalapenos I have left, I like to slice them up and pickle them. And then if I have enough, we'll do a big batch of canned pickled jalapenos. And that will last us well into the winter. And by combining these two varieties, what happens is we get our really mild jalapeno mixed with the spicier jalapeno, and the heat levels kind of average out, and that just works out really well for everybody. The next variety that I'm growing this year, this is again another jalapeno. This is the Craig's Grande jalapeno. Now, I have only grown this variety once before. I tried the Craig's Grande jalapeno last year for the first time. It did not do all that well for me, but it was a fairly poor hot pepper year for me in general because my tried and trues, which are the early jalapeno and the jalafuego, those regularly performed really well for me. Last year, neither of those did really well either. So I want to give the Craig's Grande another try because I'm thinking it really had more to do with the weather conditions last summer than it had to do with this variety. So if you have grown the Craig's Grande before, I would love to hear your experience with it. Now, all that being said, it did do reasonably well for me. It did about the same. I would say it yielded about as much as the other. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I did not grow the jalafuego last year. I didn't have seeds for it. So I grew the early jalapeno and the Craig's Grande last year, and I think they performed about equally. So if you have had success with the Craig's Grande, I would love to hear how it did for you. And we will definitely be comparing all three varieties this year just to see how they do. The next hot pepper I'm going to be growing is the long slim cayenne pepper. Now this pepper is again a little bit too spicy for me just to eat. So I primarily grow this pepper for use. We'll basically at the end of the season, we'll dry all of the cayenne peppers that we have, and then we'll either grind some of them up for seasoning. What I like to do is just slice some of them in half, just slice them open so that they dry fully, and I use them in herbal medicine. These are really great if you like to make fire cider or something like that. So that is my primary use for cayennes. Another thing I like to do with these cayenne peppers is, especially if we have a really mild jalapeno year, you know, some summers when it's a little bit cooler, we get a lot more rain, the jalapenos tend to be more mild than most years. If it's a year like that, I will slice up some of these cayennes and put them in along with that big batch of pickled peppers that I mentioned. And the cayennes will bring up the spice level of the jalapenos because these are quite a bit spicier. I think I'm going to be growing probably only one or two plants of these because they do yield really well. And as I said, we don't really use a lot of them. The next hot pepper that I'll be growing is the ahi lemon drop pepper. My friend Katie over from Mayfield Ranch sent me these seeds last year, and I tried them last year for the very first time. I really did enjoy this pepper. This is, again, you know, I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to heat, in case you haven't figured that out from this video. So these were a little bit too spicy for me to have plain, but my husband really did enjoy them. They're cute little yellow peppers. They yielded really prolifically. So I was really happy with them, and again, I added these into the pickled pepper mixture as well, and we actually still have some of those in our refrigerator from last summer. They have been doing really well. They've been getting eaten on tacos and lots of other food. So because these were so prolific, and while they were a little bit spicy for me, I thought that the flavor behind the heat was really good. So if I could kind of mix these with some milder peppers and tone them down a little bit, then I think I would really enjoy those. The final hot pepper that I'm planning to grow this year is the poblano pepper. Now, I call it a hot pepper. This is really pretty mild. I mean, it kind of depends on your weather and kind of depends on the season. But for the most part, I find poblano peppers to have a really nice heat level. It's got a little bit of heat that you can tell it's there, but overall, it's very mild, and they just add a really great flavor. And one of my plans for the poblanos, actually, another thing that I like to do with my jalapenos towards the end of the season when I get that last big harvest is to can a batch of cowboy candy. That's basically jalapenos that are both pickled and candied at the same time. They're really good. They've got a lot of flavor going on. So they've got that tang from being pickled, they've got the sweetness from being candied, plus, you know, just the spice from being jalapenos. So they've got all that flavor going on. They're really good, but sometimes I want that flavor with a little bit less heat. So I was thinking about trying making some cowboy candy this year with poblano peppers. I have never seen anyone do that. I assume that somebody probably has. If you have tried something similar with poblano peppers, I would love to hear your experience with that, but I'm planning to give it a try this year. These are also really good in chili. What I like to do is just blister them under my broiler, and then you just cover them in a bowl with plastic wrap so that they start to steam. I peel all the skins off, then they're great in chili. So we don't cook a lot of chili in the summer, so probably what I'll do is prepare a lot of the peppers that way, and then I'll freeze them, and then we can pull them out of the freezer and use them in chilies over the winter. So those are my plans for poblanos. If you have any other ways that you love to use poblanos, I would love to hear that from you too. So that's all the hot peppers I'm planning on growing this year. So let's get started on the sweet peppers. I did mention at the beginning of this video that I am continuing my search for a bell pepper replacement. It has been my experience over many years of gardening that bell peppers just really don't do well for me. I think if you live in a hotter environment, you probably have more success with bell peppers than I do. But here in Connecticut, it's a little bit cool. And while I have been able to grow some really delicious bell peppers, what I find is that the plants are just not really all that prolific. They don't yield anywhere near as many peppers as I would like them to. So last year, I did experiment by trying some other sweet pepper varieties that I was planning to use to replace my bell peppers. So the first variety that I tried last summer was the red Corno de Toro. I was really happy with this pepper. I really enjoyed it. It had great flavor, very similar to bell pepper. You can see that they have a different shape. They're longer and skinnier than a bell pepper, but in any kind of dish where you're planning to chop them up or slice them up, they do make a really great bell pepper substitute. They were definitely more prolific for me than bell peppers that I've grown in the past, so I will be growing those again this year. I really enjoyed them. We're also going to be trying out some new varieties just to kind of have as much variety as possible and see what performs the best here in Connecticut. Now, similarly, the next variety that I have is the yellow Corno de Toro. Basically, everything that I just said about the red Corno de Toro applies here, except for the color. These also yielded really prolifically. They had great flavor. Now, when I say prolifically, this doesn't compare to how well our hot peppers usually do, but they yielded much more than bell peppers generally do for us, so I was really happy with them. So both of those will be grown again this year. I grew them both last year for the first time and really enjoyed them. Now, when I basically fell in love with those Corno de Toro peppers last year, I went on a mission. I searched for an orange Corno de Toro pepper. I wanted to see if such a thing existed because orange bell peppers are my favorite of all the bell peppers. And if I'm trying to use the Corno de Toros to replace bell peppers, I wanted to have an orange alternative as well. And I'm kind of assuming hopefully this is a correct assumption, that the orange Corno de Toro will have a similar flavor to the orange bell pepper. If you have grown the orange Corno de Toro, it is kind of challenging to find. I think it's definitely more rare than the red and yellow varieties. If you have grown that, I would love to hear how you liked it and how it compares to an orange bell pepper. So I did manage to find some of these orange Corno de Toro peppers. So I'm going to be trying these out this year for the first time. These are an open pollinated heirloom variety. So what that means is, as long as I prevent cross-pollination in my plants, I can save the seeds and I can know that I'll be growing the same pepper again next year. So that's my plan. So you can see I just got a little seed packet here with just a few seeds. And as I said, these seeds are a little bit challenging to find, but I'm really excited to try them. Now, when I searched for the orange Corno de Toro, I accidentally stumbled upon this, which is the Corno de Toro chocolate pepper. So, you know, I've got to have all the varieties, I have to have all the colors. So when I saw that the company that I got, these are from, it's actually primarily a pepper company. It's from Texas Hot Peppers. That is where I found the orange Corno de Toro seeds. I found that they also carried the chocolate brown variety. So, you know, I had to have that one too. So we'll also be trying that one this year, and I'm just really curious to see how they compare to the classic red and yellow that are really easy to find everywhere. These other two being a bit more rare, I'm just going to wait and see what happens, and we'll see how we like them. The next pepper I'll be growing this year is the Lesia pepper. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I did grow this pepper last year for the first time, and it was delicious. I really loved the flavor. I did find that it didn't yield quite as much as I was hoping. As you can see, I don't think this is considered a bell pepper, but it is kind of similarly shaped. So I don't know if that means that the plant also has similar bell pepper characteristics, but I am really excited to try these again next year. I did also experiment at the end of last season with trying to overwinter a couple pepper plants. So in my garage, I brought in one of these Lesia pepper plants from last season. It's still alive. I cut all the leaves off, so it's dormant right now in my garage, which it stays just a little bit above freezing. So it's not cold enough to kill it, but it's cold enough to keep it dormant. So in my garage, I have one of these. I have one of the red Corno de Toros and one of the orange, or one of the yellow Corno de Toros, I should say. So I'll be experimenting. Once the frost has passed, I'm going to bring those out to let them wake up. We'll see how they do. So I'm really excited. I'm hoping that having overwintered one of these peppers will give it a little bit of a head start. Hopefully I'll get an earlier yield and hopefully a more prolific yield. But I will definitely keep you updated on how that does. Next is another tried and true variety for me. This is the Shishito pepper. These peppers are delicious. They yield really prolifically. I really enjoy them. There's lots of different ways to prepare them. Probably the way that we prepare them the most is just to cook them on their own really simply. We just put them in a hot skillet, we just poke little holes in them so they don't burst. And we just blister them, sprinkle a little bit of flaky salt over them, and I like to dip them in a garlic aioli dipping sauce. Really, really good. Now, I did not come up with that method of cooking them. I think you'll find that cooking method for shishitos is really common, but it's really common for a reason, because it's really good. So I definitely recommend growing these. If you have any other ways that you like to prepare your shishito peppers, I would love to hear that from you too, because we have been using most of them the way that I mentioned. We really enjoy it, but we're always open to trying new things too. Now, these two are related. These are both shishito pepper seeds that I saved from my own garden. Not this past year, the year before that, I grew shishito peppers, and one of the seedlings came up variegated. Right from the beginning, it had some leaves with streaks of white on them. It was a really pretty pepper plant, and I really wanted to see if there was something in the genetics that I could preserve. So I saved some seeds. Now, on that pepper plant, there was one pepper where the pepper itself was variegated, and all the other peppers on the plant just looked like regular shishitos. So I saved seeds both from that variegated pepper and also from some of the other peppers that were on the same plant. Since there was only the one variegated pepper, there weren't a lot of seeds to save from that, so I saved from both. Now, last season, I did start some seeds from each of these packets. I did not have great results. What ended up happening was the shishitos that I started from the variegated plant, but the non-variegated peppers, ended up, they grew and were just like normal Shishitos. You know, so I can't really say that's a bad result. I mean, Shishitos are great. So we were happy to have them, but unfortunately none of them came up variegated. Now with the seeds that came from the actual variegated pepper, those seedlings came up all albino. They were completely white. They had no green coloring at all. And what happened was after about a week or two after they sprouted, they all shriveled up and died. They weren't able to make food using the light. So I'm going to try some seeds from both of those packets again, hoping that at least one seed in this packet has the genetic combination that I'm looking for. So we will see if starting any of these pays off. But either way, whether that pays off or not, I will definitely be growing Shishito peppers. I have 3 more pepper varieties here that I want to mention, and these are all new to me. So I would love to hear any experience you have with any of these peppers here. Now this one is kind of a classic pepper variety, the red Marconi pepper. I just haven't grown it before. But it looks really similar to the Corno de Toro. A lot of the reviews that I've read of this pepper sound really similar to the red Corno de Toro. So I was thinking that I should grow it kind of against the Corno de Toro pepper, see how they compare to each other. So I'm really excited to grow that one this year. And if these Marconi peppers are different enough from the red Corno de Toro, I will probably continue on with growing both varieties. And as I said, these are another one that will be trialed as a potential bell pepper substitute. Next, I have this pepper here, Ajvarski, I think. I am not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this is another sweet red pepper. I think that this one is described as being a little bit different than a bell pepper, but I still wanted to trial it as a bell pepper substitute. I think that it looks like a really good pepper, had excellent reviews, so I'm really excited to try it. If you have any experience growing this pepper, I would love to hear from you about it. I would love to hear about the flavor. I would love to hear how well it yielded or just your favorite ways to use it. So again, I would love to hear any comments about that. And my final pepper variety this year is the lipstick pepper. This, once again, is another sweet pepper that I am trying as an alternative to bell peppers. So you can see I'm on a mission to find the perfect bell pepper replacement. In the seed pile here, we have lots of varieties, so I'm hoping that at least one of them is the perfect replacement. As I said, I know that I like the Corno de Toro red and yellow, so those are both great. I just want to try them again and put them up against some of these other varieties to see how they compare. So if you have any experience with the lipstick pepper, I would love to hear how it did for you. I'd love to hear about the flavor, the yield, just anything else that you find interesting about that pepper to share. I would love to hear it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today by my seed starting station. I am definitely ready for spring, definitely ready to start seeds, and I'm really excited to start these peppers together. So I hope that you're having a great day, and I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.